You're listening to Data Science Leaders, the premier podcast for executives tackling the world's most important challenges using the power of machine learning. Let's dive in. AI strategy. What is it? Do you have to have one? And who should lead it? To discuss this with us, we have today Dr. Shahram Ibadolahi. He was the Chief Data and AI Officer for Novartis. He started the Health Informatics Research Team at IBM Research and was the technical founder and the first employee of IBM Watson Health. Dr. Ibadolahi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to take these questions almost in reverse order to start with the leadership point. A lot of folks are thinking that the Chief AI Officer role is a recent invention, and maybe that specific title is, but you've been a Chief AI Officer and in these equivalent roles for a really long time, a decade or more. Could you tell us a little bit about the role and how do you do it successfully?
It's an very interesting role. If you think about it, it's a combination of complete opposites that one needs to hold at the same time. Let me illustrate what I'm saying. This person should be comfortable in the boardroom and at the same time comfortable with technology. They should do stakeholder management a lot of their time, and they should be in the trenches, guiding the work and working with the teams who are actually hands-on delivering this type of work. They should be a generalist, and at the same time, they should be a specialist, right, in a certain thing. On one side, they should be interacting with P&L leaders, CFOs, value creation, efficiency, optimization. On the other side, they go head to head with data scientists, technologists, AI specialists, and understand what they're doing to the extent that is needed for the job, right? They should be an evangelist at large in the organization, and they have to educate every person and every occasion, the teams across the company, and so on. So if you think about it, it's an odd set of capabilities that need to come together in a person, and definitely in the team. As a larger team that they're managing, they should hold a lot of these capacities and capabilities.
Well, it reminds me of the job descriptions of data scientists up until fairly recently, but probably even still. You know, you look at the description and it was like full knowledge of different methods across the different disciplines, whether that be applied statistics, data science, and operations research. But also we need them to do their own data engineering and maybe be able to do their own DevOps work and spin up their own instances. Oh, and they also need to be good communicators and consultants and project managers and be empathetic. And you really struggle to find these individuals. And they're not just unicorns, they're like chimeras. They're like multiple different creatures that you're stitching together. It feels like the AI leader, the Chief AI Officer, is sort of similar. It's this strange combination of different beasts. Can you find somebody like this? Or is this one where you're going to find somebody who is mostly in one of these areas and you evolve them, you upskill them, you give them the opportunities to go in and form those other talents? Or are there multiple pathways to get to this?
Yeah, I'll come to your question in a second, but just to finish what you just said in the data scientist job description, I always describe these type of people as with three characteristics, right? So I call them the Greek pie-shaped type of people. One is one leg is really into the technology and the science of data science, right? So hands-on, the mathematics, the coding of it, and so on. The other one is they have to have domain expertise in something. It doesn't matter what that thing is. It's they specialize in images and videos. They specialize in chemistry. They specialize in biology, whatever, finance, whatnot. And the other thing, which is so important, is they need to understand the needs of the business and how what they do relates to someone who has a need across the business, that the problem that needs to be solved, and be able to be good communicators of the value. Because otherwise, if they don't have that, they come across as someone coming from Mars with all these tools and trying to apply it, right? So maybe you find this person if you're lucky, and more of these people. And I'm know that a lot of universities and educational institutions are actually putting a lot of effort creating these kind of people. So I expect to see more of these type of folks. But if even if you can't find that in one person, at least you have to construct your teams to have these capabilities as a team and coming together to basically deliver it. So at least you create the semblance of this kind of capabilities to the rest of the organization that you're trying to work with and serve. With respect to if you can find this in a leader and where they can start to get the other aspects of it going, based on your starting point and based on your what you like and what you're willing to learn, yes, of course, it's doable, right? I suspect if you are a technologist, data scientist, AI expert with a knack for business and strategy, I think you will have a much easier job because you are immersed in what this thing can do. And then, of course, you can learn the other important aspects, the finance, the strategy, how to do a stakeholder management in organization and so on. Absolutely doable. If you come from the other side and now trying to learn the technologies, I mean, kudos to you. That is a little bit more difficult, I guess, but it's doable. Absolutely, as long as you have that willingness and capacity to do it. But I hope more and more the organizations look at finding someone who can straddle these two sides, all these different facets that I talked about, because that is exactly needed in order to succeed in this role in organizations and do all of those list of things that I just mentioned in a proper way.
Mm. Well, I'm remembering my own experience when I was running a data science team, just how wonderful it was, how effective it was to learn from my team. It was probably the place where I have learned the most was in working with my data scientists and having them explain to me what it is that they were doing, and then asking those difficult questions of, well, so how, what does this actually mean for the business? Why would our stakeholder actually care about this? What does this mean for them? So I'm hoping that it is possible for folks who are coming to this, and presumably a lot of them are coming to it from an adjacent field, like on the analytics side of things or the data management side of things. If you are certainly very humble and willing to go in and say, I really don't know these things, please teach me these with your team, I think there's an incredible opportunity to learn and pick up those core pieces of information that you need. But ideally, there's no substitute for going back to the basis and having a grounds up sense of the fundamentals. But hopefully, there's some shortcuts here. Or do you think that maybe it'll depend on the type of chief AI officer role? I'm finding that I'm often seeing folks with different sets of responsibilities and certainly lots of different conflicting expectations from around the business. But there's some folks where this seems to be more like a traditional chief data analytics officer role, but with a more beefed up data science and AI mandate. Versus then there are other ones where, no, this is really more like a chief research officer, somebody who is on the experimentation side and thinking about the art of the possible and disruption, and meant and tasked with going in and creating a separate research institute, so to speak. How do you see it working out in practice?
Of course, it depends on the genetic code of the organization, what the organization is, what they want to do, what they want to achieve, what the culture is, and all of that. But I don't think we are now, right now, in a day and age that we are going to be experimenting with this. Probably 10 years ago, 20 years ago, yes, this person was in innovation, leading research, and how AI, ML could potentially do something to the product set, to the offerings of this organization. But I think these days, given everything that is happening in the market and around us, and every day in the news we're seeing them, uh, is you really need to have, I don't care what title you give to this person, but you really need to have a person who does all the things that I just talked about and be on point in your organization and the go-to person if you want to really get the maximum benefit of this wave of technology that is coming our way. And it's not just relegating it to a technical job. It's not, yes, it has technical flavor to it, but it's not 100% technical job. right? And that is, I see organizations that just look at this and say, yet another piece of technology. Let us have the technology person handle it. I'm sorry, it's not that. It's not the case. And those people will realize very soon that, oh, we are spinning up all these proof of concepts and POCs left and right. We have the right technology partners. We are paying our licenses and things, but nothing is happening in the organization in a meaningful way. And that is a moment of pause. Are you doing the other things correctly in your organization?
Well, it's one of those where that technology-oriented person should presumably be supporting this chief AI officer or the equivalent titled role. But I guess to that point, I'm worried that a good number of folks who have gotten this role are almost in a bit of an impossible situation. They're not really being set up for success. Is there anything that you would recommend in general in order to support them and ensure that they're successful? Presumably, one of them is that they're getting this technological support and they have technologists on their team. But are there other things in terms of how that team is structured, or in terms of what the expectations of that role are, that will help increase the longevity of this of this individual in that role?
Absolutely. And I hope actually organizations do the homework before jumping both feet into hiring someone and putting them in this role and so on. And let me qualify what I mean by the homework. If you look at the longevity of a AI data leader in an organization, I think there was a study, it's 2.5 years, I think, on average. And there is interesting reason. If you will, there is 20% of success in adoption of AI across an organization has to do with technology, right? And these days, thanks to phenomenal technology companies that we don't need to name them, but they're the top five, six companies that are out there, beautiful platforms, great set of technologies, great AI capabilities, and so on, and that you can go buy and partner with. But that is only 20% of your problem. The 80%, the other things, is organization, is operation, is the culture, is does the senior leadership and the CEO themselves, does he or she even really believe that they're going to do something with AI in their organization, or is just because I heard my other CEOs whom I'm in the circle of my social circle, they are doing it, therefore I have to be doing it, or my board just told me, what are you doing about AI, and have to do it as well. I mean, that's a good first step, but you need to really educate yourself in the sense of, from a leader of an organization, how do I see my business in 5 years' time? How do I see it in 10 years' time? What are the areas, what are the business levers that this AI thing can really help me improve my organization, get to my business goals faster, better, cheaper, and more. And now, what do I need to do? One of them is to hire this person to come in and actually take the helm and deliver this for me. And I'm going to keep them accountable for doing it. But alongside that, I'm going to look into the incentive design, is how the business units, the P&L holders, if I help inject AI into their businesses, the work, the way the work gets done is going to get changed. How does that affect that P&L? How should I incentivize people to adopt these things? How does AI get attributed across the organization? Is it just a common service that you charge everyone 20% overhead and just like IT go deliver it? Or is it a different type of function in the organization, right? Which it is. So all of these have to be really thought about, and not to forget the change management, because at the end of the day, this is a change management journey. You are trying to get from point A that you are now to point B, where in this point B you have a, let's I don't know if I've coined this term or not, an AI-ified organization where AI is actually embedded into your workflow, your work processes. The work is getting done in the new way using AI, not just your old way, and you have an AI thing on the side, which is not going to help you get the maximum benefit of this technology.
Mm. Yeah, ages and ages ago, I used to work for a professor at the Harvard Business School called Michael Porter, and he would run these new CEO workshops for incoming CEOs for large organizations. And it's an oversimplification, but I think he would agree with that. His view was the CEO has two jobs: strategy and culture. Um, and it sounds like, to a large degree, this is the same thing we're talking about in the chief AI officer. It's create the strategy for the organization. How is it going to leverage these technologies? How is it going to design the incentive structure around that? How is it going to ensure that the capabilities are there in supporting these and are guided towards the right use cases? But similarly, on the culture side of things, going in and being the evangelist and prophet for this, and ensuring that there is that receptiveness in the organization, that excitement and that willingness and that the belief in this that sustains ongoing change. So is it sort of fair to say that for the chief A officer, really those are at least one of those are the key thing, their key responsibility, either the strategy side or the culture side, or are there other things in there as well?
So the way I think about it is if you're a chief AI officer, I look at it in three buckets. One is culture, right? So the mindset, the education, the upskilling, showing and telling people what value could be actually had through application and implementation of AI. And this is left, right, top down in the organization, right? So this is so important. As a matter of fact, I remember I was once interviewed, and the person asked me, "What is your job as a head of AI?" I said, "It's like a prophet because you're selling a new way of thinking, a new belief to this organization that they really could start thinking about and start adopting on how they do their work. Because if you don't do that, then let's say your job in the line of work that you're in, nothing to do with AI, and then all of this is foreign to you. I mean, how is this going to affect me? How should I think about and around AI and adopt it and properly put it in the employ it in the workflows at the time?" So that culture aspect is so important. The second piece is the foundation. As the head of AI, your job is to make sure that the foundations, the necessary foundation, exist in order to do AI. And the way I see it, there are three important aspects of it. One is your data. Do you even have the data? Do you have the proper data? Do you have the verified data? All the things that you need to do you even know different pieces of your data where they're sitting? Many organizations, you will be surprised, they don't even know where their different pieces of data sit and is in what shape. So that is first and foremost, because without the data, it doesn't mean anything to do AI or even talk about AI. The second one, do I have the right platforms, the right tool set, the right technology? This is the place your partnership with the IT organization becomes important. So what to partner, whom to partner with, what to partner on, what to buy, what to license in order to have the right tool set in order to do the AI. The third aspect is, do I even have the skill set and the talent in the organization to be able to attempt? If I'm a technology company, probably is easier. But if I'm a non-technology company and I'm doing other types of industries, how can I attract this talent? What is my selling point to this? How can I retain this talent? How do I augment it through partnerships with other organizations that have these kind of plans? So all of that, you have to have a strategy. And by the way, if I'm bringing this talent in, what is their career progression, right? How do I keep them there? How do I motivate them and so on? So that I call the foundation. And then, so this is the second bucket. The third bucket is now you go to value and value delivery. What are the business levers? Which one are AI-able? Because you can't just shotgun everything with AI and paint everything with AI. Sorry if you're doing that, that's wrong, because then you're setting the wrong expectation and you're going to fall flat on your face at some point. So if you assess the value levers by assessing the business strategy of your company, and talking to different P&L leaders and so on and so forth, okay, you identify those value levers. You can, as the head of AI with your team, go down the list and understand which ones are AI-able, for which there are actually credible solutions out there. There was a great book that recently came out called Snake Oil Vendors in AI, right? Or something of that sort. And there are so many of them out there. What is the credible AI solution that I can bring this in to this problem with a proper economical value, feasibility? Do I have the data to do this kind of thing, and so on? And now that you know your value levers, your AIable solutions are basically problems, now either focus your team with that tool set and the data that we talked about and go deliver that value. And the important thing, have the measurement framework to know that you're doing the right thing and you're on the right path to progress, right? So that is a proper portfolio management that you need to keep at it and actually deliver and communicate it to the right stakeholders that look, we are doing this AI, this is the value you're getting for your business unit, and this is what else that could be done and in collaborate. And this is a very collaborative type of work, is you as the AI head with that business leader who is your partner you're working with to deliver this value.
Mm. You're reminding me of yet another one of Michael Porter's favorite sayings, and I'm sorry, I'm probably going to soon be able to be replaced by a Michael Porter chatbot. But he would say that the essence of strategy is in choosing what not to do. And probably there hasn't been a time in the AI machine learning space where that hasn't been more important than now, where you are having experimentation going on everywhere in the organization. And on the one hand, that's wonderful. It's a sign of more of cultural change and more adoption and interest and excitement around it. On the other hand, the potential for distraction, for going after use cases that aren't going to deliver value or that can't be put in production, has never been greater. Indeed, I'm reminded of one company I remember hearing saying that they had spun up one of these initiatives to solicit ideas, and they got 500 ideas, but really it was 5 ideas repeated 100 times with minor differences in different parts of the organization. And that was even before assessing any of these in terms of value and impact. And
Yeah,
so it seems
absolutely.
like potentially a key role for the AI leader is also saying no to a lot of things that are going to put the organization down a path where they're not going to see value, and steer them and consolidate the best towards things that do have that likelihood of not either moving the needle or putting them on the right path or trajectory towards being able to achieve their goal. Fair to say, or
Is absolutely correct. So one is it comes down to that construction of that portfolio, which I just talked about, those value levers. What is AIable? What is credible solution outside, or you can build yourselves in an economical, feasible way. That is one thing. The way I think about it is there are so many tool sets, platforms, capabilities out there. What with your limited resources in your particular, it doesn't matter what organization you're sitting, at some point there is a limit to things that you can do. You have to appropriate your attention and capital and focus in a very judicious way. Otherwise, as a leader, you're not doing your job correctly. What do I decide to build myself with the resources that I have, right? What should I go out and buy from someone? And what should I partner with someone to build it for me, right? So, for example, if these days there are co-pilots out there for these various, so if you are a buyer or a customer of one of those technologies, why you should build anything that a co-pilot that will come with them, these kind of tools, why you should spend your time and research on. So that is off limits. So let those people do it. Uh, Versus where is the so-called crown jewels or family jewels for your business, because you have a certain type of data, you have the knowledge and know-how that is embedded in the heads of your operators, your associates, the way they go about the work, combine that with the data that you have, and do I need to do this piece of AI work and solution myself because of those two factors that is really differentiating and only my people can do it? Rather than bringing someone from outside, educating them for 6 months what this data is and what the workflows are. I mean, you're wasting a lot of time with doing that. And I've seen this actually example firsthand in several occasions in organizations that are bringing someone from outside for these very specialized type of scenarios, and it's just a complete waste of time, right? So you have to really bifurcate what you build, and you better have a very good reason why you're building it and what you're actually partnering or buying from outside. So that is also part of the strategy, which I put it into how you go about delivering that value from that portfolio that you have constructed.
I'm wondering when it comes to that build versus buy decision, whether it's more nuanced than it is for in a lot of traditional software development and software procurement, in the sense that there are remarkably few AI or certainly Gen AI based solutions out there today on the market, but there are lots and lots of AI components on the market. So, in the sense of you have plenty of folks who can provide you access to a hosted LLM, a vector store, you name it, but a lot fewer who can go in and create a solution for you in order to do something like automated claims processing. Presumably, some of these will come, but it has taken a good amount of time. And it early on, when folks first started paying attention to ChatGPT, there almost was this belief that we would be able to outsource everything, that we wouldn't actually need to go in and build our own AI products. And it's taken a long time. So I'm wondering whether or not this is one where you can't think about it, you shouldn't be thinking about this in terms of sourcing entire solutions for the most part. Maybe there are some out there for like cogen, for example, and you're certainly not going to go in and build your own word processor or email capability with for that currently say Gemini does in Google email and other things, or Copilot does in the Microsoft suite. But for most of the other applications, this is about getting those different components, some of them internal and some of them external, integrating them and turning those into the bespoke differentiated applications that your organization needs, or other shortcuts. And are you seeing there becoming a marketplace for closer to off the shelf solutions that folks can actually go out and buy and implement and not have to
Yeah,
do the hard work themselves?
that's a very good point you're raising, Joe. It's the current state of AI and data science. It's a part art, part science, right? And that is actually a difference that a lot of organizations don't appreciate. They think it's just technology. Let's have some technology person deal with it, and it's just buying a license for some platform or some software tool. In many cases, as you just aptly mentioned, is that's not the scenario. So I hope in 10 years' time, I mean, there's a lot of talk of agentic AI and so on at the start of the journey. Let's say by year 2030, 2035, you have such a rich cast of agentic AI agents that you can push up a button, deploy, and is something that IT will take on and basically manage, right? But we are not there, unfortunately, right? So there is a big portion of uh, this art of data science and AI that is in play today. And you need to be able to have the savvy and the expertise to understand which elements of what Lego pieces exist, how to compose your solution, fill those gaps if need be internally while you're pulling certain aspects from outside and assemble what is needed in order to solve your problem. But that, before doing that, it goes to the previous point that we were making, is you have to have a very clear-eyed strategy. What is core? What do you need to build? What do you need to assemble before going headlong into that journey? And there is actually a point here to be made. This is also opportunity to increase the moat and the competitiveness of organizations, to activate the venture arms of a lot of companies. To, if something is so important to you and you are not a Google or a Microsoft to build it yourselves, so maybe your venture arm can get activated, spend time with some startups. There are so many startups out there who are trying to design these kind of solutions, but the problem is they don't know your domain knowledge, they don't have access to your data. how to become close to them, so and nurture them, because you're going to be the beneficiary of it later on at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always a danger of anthropomorphizing everything in the AI space, but I'm reminded of how you manage your human employees. Yes, it is possible to go in and outsource parts of your organization and just hire externally, but we don't tend to do that for everybody in our organization. And there are very valid reasons for that. It's because things are specific to your differentiation, there's knowledge that is specific to your organization, your processes are very specific. And if you go in and try and outsource those, there are limits to it. There are certain things which aren't, which you absolutely can, but then there are other ones which either you have fully internal or it becomes some sort of hybrid. It is that you have internal individuals who are very knowledgeable about this, managing contractors and external organizations. And to a certain extent, that's a valid metaphor for how you would be managing quote unquote AI agents as we get closer and closer to these. You're still going to be in a position where some of those AI agents are going to be ones that you would need to develop yourself. You are going to need orchestrating agents or orchestrating capabilities that work with maybe agents that are hosted externally in order to be delivering the very customized, specialized value that your organization needs.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And we talked about the data, the knowledge and know-how that is ingrained, embedded in people's heads, and how work gets done in the workflow, and the AI solutions. So the three of them combined is really that moat, which the organization need to be very thoughtfully go about it. What is that specific magic sauce about our domain knowledge and know-how combined with that data? Now I can either build or buy or have some startup do this AI solution, but I'm the person who are bringing those three aspects together because that is the core of my company.
Well, speaking of other strategy professors at business schools, there was one called Jay Barney who, not very long ago, 6 months to a year ago, was writing an article about how there was so little strategy and differentiation and meaningful competitive moat in Gen AI because there were these reusable components that everybody would get access to. But I think he completely missed the boat on this one because, yes, maybe you might not be training your own LLM, you might not even be fine tuning your own LLM, but there is so much that is unique and proprietary and differentiating in how you use these different capabilities. Not to mention your capability for going in and stitching and orchestrating all of those different capabilities and governing all of those. There's so much differentiation there that actually there is incredible sources of long-term competitive advantage that you can deliver through AI, even when you are sourcing a lot of the underlying components from
Absolutely.
outside.
And I hope the leadership of organizations really pay attention to this, because in the fast evolving market and space of AI and everything that is happening, this thought process to go through is so important if you want to further enhance the value of your business and decide what parts maybe you shouldn't be doing, but the parts that you're doing because of that data and the know-how and the knowledge, you double down, you do it better, you increase your moat, you create a further differentiation and value for yourselves.
It's one thing to know what we need to do. It's an entirely different thing to go in and actually execute on this. Would love to get a sense of what do you tell folks. You can provide providing this at a high level is easy to grasp, but in terms of an actual journey of then turning that into something which is specific to your organization, how do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, thanks for mentioning that. So, what we are aiming at to be really the trusted advisor and a help to the C-suite executives of the companies who are contemplating or are early in the journey or have started the journey, but there are so many POCs and they're not getting value. That is where we would love to come in and help these folks. And the first and foremost is actually where you want to go. We call it the point B of the organization, where you want to go and what is the value to be had from AI, those value levers that I talked about, how to bring AI to it, and then what is the operation, what is the organization, what is the incentive design, what is the business transformation. And although we don't implement, we are not a technology implementation company, but to be at your side to also vet who is out there that can actually now deliver this value by implementing the actual solution for you. And we will stay with you to make sure that this value from this portfolio that we co-create and co-construct with you is going to be delivered, right? And this is not an academic. There are so many academic people who are advising companies on these type of things. This is done by people who have been there in the trenches, have done this, have delivered value. Now they have come to this realization that a lot of organizations are actually having the same problem. As I said earlier, it's not the buying a technology, it's how do I set up my organization? How do I go about the points that are value creating for me? How does AI even apply? Do I even need to bring a head of AI to my organization? Where do I place these people? And what are the incentives and what should be expected from this AI implementation in my organization? And how do I protect the crown jewels, increase my moat because of everything that we just talked about, this buy, build, partner, where to work, where the data is, where the knowledge is, and so on and so forth.
It sounds like so. There are a couple of best practices in there. Step one is if you're embarking on this journey, find somebody who's already been down this path before,
Yeah,
and learn their secrets and what worked, and presumably also what pitfalls that you should avoid.
yeah.
It sounds like the second one is there. It's not just also identifying the best use cases. It feels like there's a much more complex mapping there. It's sort of a, well, it's in that intersection of what we want to achieve versus what this technology is actually good for, and then with yet another dimension of, and to what degree can we execute on this.
And also, I mean, these days you hear about maintenance of these technologies, especially the Gen AI category of tools, is gonna be, I mean, hopefully it will come down as we go forward. It is coming down, but it's a costly proposition as you go forward, right? So you really need to look at it truly from a portfolio management. If I put this challenge on my portfolio and I'm gonna create a solution for it, first of all, the commitment, not just to build the solution and apply it, how do I change my workflow? How do I change operations around this scenario, right? So oftentimes, so let me give you an example. Uh, Once I saw a team came up with a brilliant idea of Gen AI applied to writing documents in some regulatory environment, which actually could pass the regulatory threshold to get approval and so on. So that's brilliant. I mean, who doesn't want that? But when you look at that entire end-to-end process, this piece is 5% of the 100% that needs to happen. So is it worth if I spend so much energy into developing this thing? I mean, I have to really rethink the end-to-end before embarking on building a technology. I mean, as if you look at my technologist side of me, yes, you want to jump in and find a solution for everything and build a technology and couple up the software and do data science. I mean, that is great, but what problem exactly you're solving? What is the end value of it? So that is why people need to take a step back, look at the work, what workflow I'm trying to really transform, what piece of work such that it's done more efficiently, is net new value that is coming out of it, and that is actually goes into the measurement framework. How I'm going to measure myself is not just I built the solution, I dropped it in, I'm done. No, sorry, that's not the. You're not passing the measurement threshold. Is what improvement based on what we agreed upon that you're going to actually deliver end to end in this workflow and the process in the business.
Yes, I don't hear often that called out enough, which is that, well, yes, we could build it, but The feasibility isn't just about building it. The feasibility is also, can we do the change management to drive the adoption of this as
Absolutely.
well? And it sounds like there's more there. And my apologies for constantly mentioning business school professors, but there's the late Clay Christensen had this jobs to be done framework, and thinking about your solution in terms of, if it was a job, what would it be hired to do? What is the actual job there? And so frequently, the use cases that we're going after are just one small part of the job. And actually, there are other things that need to happen simultaneously in order for you to get the value for that job,
Yeah,
no matter how,
absolutely.
you know.
Yeah, you mentioned 500 POCs, and many of them, hundreds of them, are like 5 times over copied and so on. It's because it's the shiny object. People are innovative. We want everyone to innovate, but you say, okay, I have a solution for this thing, but you're not thinking about step two, step three. What are you actually trying to transform? It's not just building this solution and just dropping it in. I mean, you have to think, I mean, the longer term value of this, or whatever the time horizon is for the value creation that you have.
It feels like there's glorious contradictions in this space. For example, we would like agentic AI and automation and autonomy, and usually the secret to success is in controlling the agency and what it's allowed to do and providing governance around this. And similarly, here we say that we would love to drive innovation, but it almost sounds like a core thing here is actually to constrain innovation to those pathways that can actually deliver value, so that you can focus both effort and minimize cost, so that you can go in and deliver the things that actually matter. So,
Yeah.
um,
So there
yeah.
are methods to the madness, so to speak, is how you let people innovate, but what is the focused and very methodical way to pick and choose and bring it, and now that what people call scaling in this everything that we just talked about in that portfolio, to really transform how business gets done, coming with that up with that innovation to how transforming business gets done. It's a bridge that needs to be carefully actually traversed, right?
Indeed. Well, I was curious whether that's sort of the most unexpected advice that you end up giving to organizations, or is there other ones where you're advising them on this path and it really hits them from left field? It was sort of things that they had never thought of before, because they have to really
You know,
readjust how they think about the problem.
yeah. I mean, I think we so far talked about so many hopefully unexpected things that people need to do, but I can't emphasize enough the role of the leadership of the organization, even to all the way to the CEO, right? This is a really a shift on how business gets done. This is not yet another tool, buy it and just put it somewhere in the organization, right? It's a mindset and the culture, and then of course technology implementation, portfolio delivering value. But that is important. So the role of the CEO, he or she really needs to set the vision, set the intention for the organization, and then enable the right elements in order to do it.
Mm.
The other one is I really urge the organization to think about incentives, which goes into transformation of workflow, how work gets done, and so on. Because if they don't think about it, you put all that effort and energy and capital, you build something phenomenal, it's not going to be adopted by anyone, right? And that is you may think just business financial terms. Well, we write it off. Yeah, that's okay, but it's damaging the hopes of the talent who has been working on this and hopes of what the organization could be, right? So you should be really careful to sort out those issues while you're embarking on building something to when it gets to that point of adoption and changing of the how work gets done. Those are all sorted out as well. I think that is very important. And the other thing is really think about in this day and age of AI and agentic AI and all of these tools and generative AI that is really getting infused into every aspect of our life and society. What is core to your business that That domain knowledge, that data exists that you really need to enhance using AI so it becomes a power multiplier, force multiplier for you, and let the other people do the rest of this stuff. You don't need to do everything AI yourselves.
Well, it sounds like, well, a good strategy. One is it's more feasible. You're more likely to do it, and it will align to the value that you're creating. But to an earlier point that you were just saying, then it's also a bad strategy will actually decrease the likelihood that you will ever get there. It doesn't take a failure or lack of progress before the organization loses that momentum. Or if you're going in the wrong direction, it becomes even harder then to shift them towards another path that is more likely to be successful. And it also sounds like all of this has to be a very deliberate process. It's not one where,
Absolutely.
build it, give folks access to it, and we'll figure out later what we're going to do with it, or we'll sort out the problems of how we're going to get it into production or how we're going to get it adopted later. No, you should flip that on its head, and it goes back to the leadership point that we started with. It's having the individuals who can align that, ensure align the incentives, align the use cases, map it back to the capabilities, tie in with the external resources that you can leverage for this, but also keep this on track and be accountable for all of this and ensure that progress isn't it's not enough just to kick this off. It has to be an ongoing reinforced cycle in order for it to be successfully transform the organization and go beyond just a couple of one-off successes, it sounds like.
Absolutely. You got it absolutely correct.
Shahram, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast and sharing your wisdom on this.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to Data Science Leaders from Domino Data Lab. If you found our discussion insightful, be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode. Your support helps us deliver cutting-edge content and keep the data science community informed and inspired. We appreciate every review. Until next time.